Apple just said Google is toast. Apple just said that fewer people are using Google for search because they're relying on AI. That announcement from Apple in court just caused Google's stock to crash. This leads to a great irony. Google pays Apple billions of dollars to be the default search provider on all of Apple's devices, including the iPhone. By the way, this was one of the major reasons that Google lost its antitrust trial over its dominance in search. Google pays Apple billions of dollars to be the default search provider on its products because it locks out competitors, and Google makes billions of dollars in advertising from all those people using its products. The irony is that all of those billions are meaning less and less as people move away from search and towards AI. But Google's anti-competitive relationship with Apple is one of the reasons why it's been so far behind on consumer AI. While Google had every resource and reason to be ahead of the rest of the pack, they were making so much money from traditional search that they missed the trend and got beaten by ChatGPT. Google CEO said that they were literally taken off guard by all the interest in AI. How the hell does that happen if you're Google? You literally know what people are searching for. I'll tell you why. That happens when you're a monopolist instead of an innovator. Google for missing the AI boom because you were a search monopolist, which has now led your search monopoly to start to crumble.
Google just lost more than $150 billion in market capitalization in one single trading day. You are talking the entirety of the market cap of Starbucks or Caterpillar or two Nikes. Why? Because the future of search on an iPhone might not be Google. And Eddie Q, a key executive at Apple, took to the stand at a trial investigating whether indeed Google has a monopoly position and how you should fix it. And he said, number one, in April, we saw search using our Safari web browser go down for the first time ever. Two, he thinks it's because of generative AI products. And will they therefore start to shake up Safari? He says, yes, we're thinking about it, potentially by putting generative AI options into Safari in the future instead of it defaulting to Google search. But already he's saying, look, we're analyzing other players out there. Of course, OpenAI, Perplexity, Anthropic's offering. And maybe, therefore, it's not going to be all about Google. Not all about Google paying about $20 billion a year to Apple to be that default. And yes, of course, Gemini is an offering from Google, and maybe they offer that within Safari. But maybe they use OpenAI or one of the competitors. Already, remember, OpenAI is integrated within the operating system, 18 of iPhones, and you can use it when you use Siri, for example. Gemini is meant to be added to that, but so too will competitors be. It seems to have really thrown investors off guard and a reason to sell the stock, even though we've known that Google might lose that default position because of this very investigation by the DOJ. And of course, we already know that they picked OpenAI over the offerings of Google for the new operating system.
They said that AI is taking over in terms of search. Like the Google search is losing its searchability and getting replaced with people using AI. I even use a lot of ChatGPT now for research and to learn things where before I would search that on Google. I still use YouTube, obviously. And then you got Apple's Safari searches is also going down. They cut a deal with OpenAI, so a lot of stuff is happening. This is becoming the results, the antitrust and all that. So Google, y'all, we might need to find an alternative.
Apple is looking to add AI search in its browser, which is putting pressure on this stock. Let's break this down. So check it out. Apple is going to add AI search providers to the Safari browser on iPhone, iPad, and Mac. And Apple SVP Eddie Q made the disclosure in court testimony today, stating we will add them to the list. They probably won't be the default, though, which is good for Google in reference to providers like Perplexity and Anthropic. And Eddie Q also revealed that the number of searches through Safari fell for the first time ever in April, suggesting users are looking to AI sources as alternative ways to find information. That's big. And if you guys didn't know, through its lucrative deal with Google and other search engines, Apple gets a cut of ad revenue from searches, so if usage falls, Apple makes less money.
Just so you know, Apple gets paid $20 billion from Google each year. So Google is the default search engine. And Apple came out today and said, you know what? In the future, we think we're going to use an AI search engine instead. Obviously, the search engine is the cash cow for Google. Investors are worried about their market share as more people go to AI.
There is a wavering, and you can see it's not a very strong dip, but it is a dip, and it's going to go below 90%. To put into perspective, the last time it was under 90% was in 2015, in March of 2015. Now, if you're in the US, though, you can't claim all the credit. As you can see, Asia actually happens to be the biggest reason for the drop globally. The big question is, where are people going? And while Google is slowly dropping, we're not seeing massive rises on the other platforms like Bing or Yahoo. So that means people are going somewhere else, and I'll bet you any money it's AI.
So yeah, that's a great question. You would think, okay, we got news that Apple is adding some AI search options to their browser. The stock should be going up, right? Apple stock should be exploding, and it's the opposite. Google's down 9% on this news, and Apple stock's down, last I checked, 2-4%. So it comes down to overall search volume on Safari falling. That is why we're seeing this drop. And they're making $20 billion a year. And here comes the sun. Oh my God. They're making $20 billion a year from Google search. So now that we're seeing search fall on Safari for the first time ever, right? Even though it's not really going to materially impact the business in the short term, just that news alone is probably bringing down Apple stock a little bit, as now they're figuring out, okay, what other options are they going to offer in the browser? How many AI search options will they have? Obviously, they're still going to have a relationship with Google. The volume is going down a little bit on Google search for now through Safari. It is what it is.
Now, there's a famous book called The Innovator's Dilemma that explains the position that Google's in. Essentially, you as a company create a product that does extremely well and is the bulk of your revenue. But you know that there's a new technology coming that will destroy your existing business. Do you A, wait to be destroyed, or B, do you destroy your own main business? Google basically has to replace Google Search, which is a $200 billion Goliath. It's an absolute cash cow. And essentially replace it with Google Gemini. Problem is, AI is very expensive and very hard to monetize as well. Kodak found themselves in a similar situation many years ago. As did Blockbuster. Both knew something else was coming and both actually had access to build their replacement. But they decided not to, and they put their head in the sand.
Now, when ChatGPT came out in 2022, it was supposed to destroy Google's search engine business. However, I've only seen it grow more and more every quarter, every year. So for now, this Apple news just looks like noise. Maybe it will affect Google's business in the next 10, 20 years, but not in the short term. Google actually controls 90% of the total search engine market share. And I actually Googled this. So Google is still the dominant player here. Now, of course, ChatGPT and Grok are fair competition to Google. I actually used both, but I don't think this is a signal to be selling the stock. This is actually a signal to be buying the stock.
Analysts say this reflects a broader disruption in the tech landscape, where AI is reshaping user behavior, search habits, and digital advertising. Google's once untouchable lead in search now faces serious competitive threats, not just from rivals, but from the very platforms driving the next wave of innovation. Following the news, Google stock declined by almost 10%, a reflection of growing investor concern that Google's core search business could face long-term erosion.